Every Saturday is Cat Day on Echoplex Media, and not only are we posting fucking cats, we invite all content creators to join our open panel. Visit echoplexmedia.com/panel to learn how to join. Every third Saturday is Operation Catterday, where we cover this week and last year and play the best clips from the cast of conspiracy characters that Now Space has learned to loathe. The show starts at 8 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/echoplexmedia. Find our full schedule at echoplexmedia.com.
I don't know what they're smoking over there at Princeton.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree, which I just fumbled over. We do the show every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch, twitch.tv/echoplexmedia. Go ahead and hit up our swag shop. That's eplex.store. You might want to, maybe HK could stand up and show off the reason you should hit up that swag shop. This is limited edition pink HK Perrin shirt. Can we see the shoulder? HK Perrin can be like not looking over your shoulder, but looking at you from your shoulder. And there's other great stuff on there. There's a great one about Jesus and Jordan Peterson on there that's pretty funny. And then there's a picture of Jordan Peterson that right under it just says Big Pharma. And that's his name. He's big. Like, what's up, Big Pharma? Anyway, I'm producer Dave, and you can find me on Grindr.
And I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Twitter at HK Perrin. And you can find me right here on Twitch, as I'm known in the chat room as Sylphweed. That's also my gaming channel, so if you want to watch me play games, you can go follow that on Twitch.
Fan-fucking-tastic. So I've been waiting to do this guy, Jonathan Pageau, just because it's annoying. But the main reason I want to do him is because of the fucking, I don't want to do him. You know what I mean? The main reason I wanted to do an episode about him is because apparently he didn't think it was ridiculous. And he thought it was unfair that people on Twitter were making fun of him for believing in real demons. Not like the demons that haunt your soul metaphorically, because we all have that. I probably drink too much. HK probably works too hard. Historian Matt
Sometimes.
Probably is just too big a bum. The media wench probably smokes too much weed, but it's a good thing she does not listen to the Intellectual Dollar Tree, and she did not hear me say that. But he doesn't mean those kinds of demons. He means rar. He means like a literal motherfucking demon, and he believes in them. So
like the red guys with the pointy tails and the fangs and horns.
Yeah, not even the BS demons. That's right. He means real. Yeah, something like that, or like some kind of like spiritual embodiment of evil, right? That kind of demon.
Yeah, that's very silly. It's like being afraid of the boogeyman to me. I mean, I know that some people like wholeheartedly believe in that stuff, but to me, it just seems incredibly childish to actually believe in that.
Well, here he is on Rebel Wisdom, months after Rebel Wisdom claimed they were shutting down shop. And this is part one. There's 2 parts of this. We're not going to get through much of this. I have a feeling we're going to be pausing this a lot. This is him and some guy named John Vervaeke. And they're going to talk about curiosity and wonder, and hopefully demons come up.
I thought it would be nice to start
with demons, David, demons.
just a sort of sense of what maybe...
Isn't it great that they can have this conversation?
Isn't it great that we can have this conversation about them having this conversation? Also, are they in a fake coffee house that somebody built in their living room, or are they at a real coffee house and everybody saw them show up and was like, gotta go?
I think either of those is equally likely.
It's like, you know that problem of the Nazi bar? This is the problem of the sense-making cafe.
You let one sense maker in and all of a sudden you have a sense-making cafe.
That's right, because they're going to bring their friends and nobody's going to want to listen to a fucking thing they have to say.
They buy one coffee and then they sit there and talk for 5 hours.
A couple of days that we can kind of tap into and get through as much as we can. But maybe who would like to start?
I can start because I'm the one who learned of John in a weird kind of funny way, because I did this thing about zombies, and I was addressing zombies in a very similar way as him, and then someone said, have you heard of John Vervaeke? He did this thing about zombies. And so I listened to him. You had written a little book, and then there was also some videos, and it was exactly what I was trying to get to, and I thought, this is wonderful. Like, he really has this insight. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute, he's worked with Jordan Peterson,
oh, he's a maniac like me.
And I just felt like he gave a great vocabulary for the things that I wanted to talk about, because sometimes I have these intuitions and there aren't always words, or words are sometimes too imprecise, and so it's slippery. But one of the things that John has done is that he's really created a powerful vocabulary to talk about the things. And so when I don't know what to say, sometimes I'll just I'll have my little John Vervaeke dictionary, reach into that dictionary and pull in a word. So that's one.
This is really, isn't it great that we're having this conversation? Like right at the jump, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if this is if he's complimenting him or if he's insulting him.
If I was sitting down with somebody for a conversation and I'm like, oh, sometimes I'm looking for sometimes I got some crazy idea going on and there's actually no words for it because it's actually fucking insane. So what I do is look for a friend of Jordan Peterson and hopefully pull from their vocabulary to talk about it. That would be the most insulting thing I ever fucking say to somebody, right?
Yep. I would be extremely insulted if this guy was like, sometimes I just there's no words, so I'll just use the gobbledygook you spew and it works.
We're not going to get through much of this at all.
But that's what at the outset attracted me to John. But then after that, there's so much more. I think that what John's doing in terms of consciousness and bringing the importance of consciousness to the fore, this notion of relevance and relevance realization, I think it's really falling into the right moment in so many ways, right? There are all these fields that are culminating towards that, and I think that his work is crucial to make sense of everything. So as much as the technology field with the question of AI or the question of intelligent machines, but then also the whole problem of social media, the whole problem of the media landscape as being related to attention, you realize that understanding relevance and understanding how relevance works and the manner in which we engage with the world is so important for us to make sense of what's going on and to not just be tools in this machine cog, the cog in this machine that's running and we don't know what's going on. We go down our phone and we just fall into these framed methods of getting your attention. We don't realize that we're just playing.
By framed methods of getting your attention, does he mean that there's something outside of the screen on your phone, like a picture frame? Or does he mean the metaphorical framing?
I think he means a metaphorical framing. He's he's just describing like, isn't it great that we can sit here and talk about nonsense instead of being on our phones and social media?
Right.
It's like, sure.
I mean, that is what a pub is for.
Yeah.
Game, and we're just feeding the system. And so I think that one of the things that John is offering is a mechanism for us to be able to step back and understand what that is. So that's one. And then ultimately, I would say in terms of his approach to conversation and his just genuine openness, like all the conversations we've had, and we've acknowledged our differences, we know where we stand, and we kind of laugh about it, and we smile about it. But then we always go further in and deeper into the conversations. And so I think that he's...
Well, they are fucking like, this is part 1 of 2, and it's an hour and 24 minutes. So you are going to go deep into something if you're going to talk for 3 fucking hours with somebody. God damn.
I have never been more impressed by any skill than I am at everyone even tangentially related to the IDW, than their skill to go hours and hours of talking without saying a goddamn thing.
Or if they do say anything like true, it's like obvious. And if they say anything new, it's ridiculous, right?
Yep.
But mostly they don't say anything. Yeah. They say as little as possible in as many words as possible. It's like it's like if you're trying to do a book report, but you haven't read the book.
They're trying to do that, but with life.
It's been such a precious conversation partner, and bringing my own ideas, because sometimes it won't happen in the conversation. Like we have the conversation, we kind of test each other, we push each other a bit, and then I go away, and then
that's probably the best part.
Later that, okay, yeah, this has changed, or this way of thinking has refined itself at least. And so I'm really happy I've been really excited to see the attention that he's been getting more and more. And
literally 3 minutes and 30 seconds of, isn't it great that we're about to have this conversation?
And you know what? It is so great that they're about to have this conversation.
I'm glad that you're here with me to have some kind of disjointed conversation about their overly verbose conversation.
I'm glad that we can converse about how glad we are about having that conversation.
I'm thinking thinking deeply about what you just said, and I appreciate what you bring to the virtual table here, and I feel like sometimes you challenge me to be more thankful, actually, that you and I are able to have a conversation about the conversation that we're having about these people's conversation.
Honestly, it sounds like we're in some sort of like a drug rehab conversation.
Except the people in the drug rehab eventually get to the point.
Yeah.
And also, this isn't a Jordan Peterson video.
Conversation with Paul Vanderklay. I keep having the V wanting to go to Vervaeke or Vanderklay. With Paul Vanderklay and all these other people, and you as well, and all this little, what do they call, the little corner of the internet or whatever. Yeah. I think that's been wonderful for us, but then also for the people that have found some threads and some crumbs to kind of sustain them on their journey. So, yeah.
So I saw Jonathan talking about me and talking about the book I wrote with Christopher Mastropietro and Philip Mizovic, and so I reached out to him, and then he invited me pretty soon thereafter to come on his channel, and we had our first discussion, and I remember after the discussion was really powerful, and then I remember afterwards when the video ended, I realized, oh, I'm missing Jonathan. Like, I really, really like being in his presence and interacting with him. So
this is starting to get romantic.
I'm happy for them.
Of Dialogos is that.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, if they found each other, what are the odds that these? I can already tell this other guy is fucking insufferable too. So what are the odds, really, that these two souls cross paths in the in the deepest, darkest, glad to be having a conversation part of the internet.
I'm happy for them too.
People can get to a place they couldn't get to on their own. That doesn't mean they come to agreement.
They had a meet cute, but it took 17 hours.
That's the mistake, to think, no, we failed because we don't agree on all these propositions. I think that's the incorrect goal. But I always feel that I do that when I'm in discussion with Jonathan. Jonathan makes good-hearted and good critiques of my work, and I appreciate them. This is not me being defensive at all. Jonathan will say something like, well, John seems to be overly individualistic in how he's understanding spirituality. He's leaving out the ecclesia, and I'll go, that's really good. That's really good, and I'll take it to heart. I might not respond the way he wanted me to respond, but I'll take it to heart, and I'll say, no, that's an important point. And that always happens.
That's an important point because he didn't say I'm wrong.
Here, like...
Right, you just overemphasize. You're just too right about this one thing over here, and you're not. You're about 82% right about this other thing, but luckily you have a few extra percentage points of like over 100% right that you were over here. So if you could just move those over to this other place where you were also mostly right, I'd be really happy. And aren't you glad that we were able to talk about this in such a civil way?
Yeah, you should be able to handle any type of criticism, not just criticism that you like.
Well, what about this? And I'll go, that's something missing from my thought, or that's a way in which I've misapprehended or even mistaken something. And so...
Misapprehended?
Jonathan does it in a way that's always done with affection and respect. So he's committed as much... For me, I sense this in him. This is how it is for me. Being in right relationship with Jonathan is more important than being right about something, right? I feel that with him too. And
yeah, you know what? If this is the only kind of conversation you ever really have and you ever really enjoy, if people come at you on Twitter and say that some of what you're saying is absolute balderdash, you're going to be very upset about that, right?
I'm wondering how he would respond to someone with some actual criticism saying, hey, in this part, you said this and you're just fucking wrong.
That happened to him on Twitter because at some point in this very, very long discussion, he does say that he believes in literal demons. And so people on Twitter, ranging from the very nice fellows over at Guru's Pod to maybe someone like me, we're telling him that that's crazy, that that's a supernatural claim, and that you have to bring it. And he was very defensive and blocked a lot of people.
I mean, I would be very embarrassed too if I had a belief that was that stupid.
I would. Yeah, I don't know. I can't put myself if you believed it and you were having these kinds of deep intellectual conversations and stuff, and there were people praising you for it, would you even know that what you believed was crazy, or would you just think everybody was being a big old meanie to you? You know what I'm saying? It's hard to put yourself into that mind space.
Yeah.
Because they would,
and maybe I do have a belief that's that stupid, and I just don't know it yet. But I will strive to not have that reaction if someone tells me about it.
What he was he was replying to people saying, "Oh, well, you're just materialists," and he doesn't mean you have a Coach handbag. He means that you believe in the material world, and a lot of people replied and said, "Yeah." Yes, that is accurate.
Even if you're not fully a materialist, even if you leave open the possibility of things outside the material world, you still shouldn't believe them without evidence.
Especially not demons. I mean, that's some body thetan shit, right?
Yeah.
That's all a body thetan is a specific kind of Elrond demon.
His work on symbolism, I say this and people don't get it, and I say it half jokingly, but only half jokingly. People don't realize how radical Jonathan is, I think. Jonathan is right? The what
He rides a skateboard. That's super radical.
To get people
Snowboard in the winter.
I hope you take this as a compliment. You remind me of Goethe in that you're trying to get people to
I don't know if he actually rides a skateboard.
The world. That isn't just a way of having new propositions, but like seeing the world like in this fundamentally different and profound way, and that you actually have the courage and the integrity as a believing Christian to nevertheless mount a criticism of aspects of Christianity because of how they have lost the symbolic sense. And I admire that about you. And again, you don't do that with any hostility, but you do it with...
I think it's so admirable that as a Christian, you could disagree with something your church is doing. Like, what Christian doesn't?
And it's and just to be clear, it's not the part where they believe in like supernatural beings.
Point about symbolism and the way symbolism happens, as you put it. I think this is a really profound thing, and I think it intersects with the work I do on relevance realization and sacredness and meaning in a really, really mutually beneficial fashion. And then, as I said.
David Fuller awkwardly gets up and walks away, mumbling to himself something about being a third wheel.
I want to use an adjective, and I hope people don't hear it the wrong way. There's a sweetness to Jonathan's presence. Like, that's one of the things I missed. Like,
Jesus.
when I'm not talking with him, that kind of goes away. And it's like if
just put a ring on it, bro.
There's been beautiful music playing, and then somebody shuts it off, and you sort of, that had been sort of, it had sort of gone into the warp and woof of my mind without my realizing it.
Like, it was funny at first, but now I'm actually wondering, like, is he just like actually attracted to this guy?
I'm uncomfortable, and I'm not even there. Poor David Fuller. He didn't even get to be a wingman or anything.
There's a lyricist.
Yeah, we're like extra third wheels just watching.
Because Chris is like that too. The lyricism is beautiful. And like I said, Jonathan's ability.
Just like a car has a third wheel and a second third wheel.
I aspire, I hope that's the right word, I aspire to follow Socrates in ultimately a Neoplatonic way of life. And Jonathan is...
This interaction don't feel so Platonic to me.
But I think it's still a legitimate form of Neoplatonism. And I think Christian Neoplatonism is a very good thing, so I'm not trying to do a backhanded insult. But Jonathan lives it. And I admire that.
He's like, if I was doing like a slick insult, I wouldn't be able to do that actually because I'm not slick. So just don't think I'm doing that. I'm not that slick, all right?
And so that's also why I like engaging with him.
Yeah, I've got so many kind of jumping off points with what you guys have just said, but I just wondered if you wanted to respond to.
He's like, do you play together?
I didn't expect what you said, and I feel I take it definitely to heart, and I think that's something. I mean, I do see that we're also.
I didn't expect what you said, and gosh, I'm just so choked up. I feel the same way.
When the first time we met, we knew it instinctively that was happening, and then it's just a question of letting the vase getting filled with time and anecdotes, and so I.
We should write some fanfic about these two.
Yeah, there's so many different jumping off points. You mentioned this sort of this corner of the internet,
yes,
which I think is probably a good way of sort of framing it. And lots of people have given it different names, sort of the liminal web or the sense-making web, or lots of different kind of. But the broadest frame, and I'd love to get your definitions on this as well.
It's all full of shit and overly verbose. What other like descriptions would we use for that? Delusions of grandeur web.
Language salad.
But this is also a little bit more like Match.com.
Is what Jim Rutt has called the what's next space. Mm-hmm. This sort of sense of there's a lot of common themes. One is like the whole left by religion.
The what's
like
next
sort of
space?
Questions of purpose and meaning that are not
similar to the now space.
Modern society, and that sort of seems to be fueling.
If these guys, these guys ever saw a Russell J. Gould video, it would blow their fucking minds.
With those deeper questions, and how would you how would you frame like the or delineate this kind of wider space or this wider conversation?
I mean, I think that's right. I mean, I worry that there's a bias because I do think the meaning crisis is a thing and it's important. And I do think it's kind of that whole, and we have different names for it, but I think we're talking about...
How far are we into the video right now?
10 minutes, 45 seconds.
And they haven't said a fucking thing.
Well, they've flirted and they've talked about how great it is to have a conversation. It's like when Harry met Sally, except they're not going to have that awesome faking an orgasm at that dinner scene.
It really is like remarkably impressive how much these people can say, how much they can talk, I should say, without saying anything. Like it's actually like it's a real talent, and I am impressed.
One of the things I would add to that is not only the matter, but the manner. One of the things that seems to typify this corner of the internet is that we're trying to move into what I call dialogos, what I talked about before, when, you know, how Jonathan and I interact, and how it takes on a life of its own because we're both seeking mutual movement into a forward.
It would be akin to if you spent like an hour and a half in the kitchen, right? And you dirtied up like 15 different dishes. And finally it comes time to serve dinner. And you just walk out with 8 fucking empty plates. Like, here you go.
Or a platter with a grape on it.
Realization. And then that is in the service of right relationship, right? And that's a fundamentally different ethos than you know, what you see through most of social media, a lot of the internet. So I think that manner, which I give the name to dialogos, I'm trying to pick up on many different things with that term. I think that is also an important thing. There's a commitment to that. And there's also a commitment to, and this is something I guess it's part of the manner. I think what we're also doing, and I'm trying to use a term that I got from Christianity. I don't think it's insulting to Christianity the way I'm using it. I think there's an attempt to rediscover and revalue fellowship as something distinct from specific friendship or just being a member of a team or part of a corporation or whatever, right? And so because one of the things people often say, especially in more intense versions of like dialectic into dialogos, is they'll say, I didn't know that this kind of intimacy existed. It's neither sexual nor familiar nor friendship, but it's important, and I've always been craving it. They say that. And so I think another thing this corner of the internet is...
Are these people on Molly?
I think maybe he's just not getting along with his SO. So he's like, he's trying to maybe get some close time somewhere else.
It's this idea that and Eric Weinstein does this a lot too. He's like, oh, we have these conversations. We have this special way of interacting that other people probably can't replicate.
It's not sexual, but it gives you that feeling, you know, and like you're about to come.
It's just that, yeah, this is awful, man. This is like, I can't, it's not even, this is so far beyond the, isn't it great that we're having this conversation? It's like, we've created a greater love. We've created a greater love than any other love that has ever. It's like a fucking love song, right? There's love songs talk about how we have the greatest love that fucking ever existed. But this isn't even a song, and songs end.
Dave, this is intellectual edging.
Oh my God.
Trying to do is to bring back into prominence,
getting right up to your point, right up there, but you never actually get there.
And I don't see that as a value or even something that's being explored. And so for me, I use this metaphor of, we're trying to get the courtyard rather than the courtroom. where we're trying to get people who
What?
to sit together and talk deeply and converse and participate in a conversation that takes on a life of its own. It's transformative, and they experience fellowship. Because, of course, that is also something.
That's what you would do at like a school.
Right? 150. You're not friends with 100
Like if you want to do that, go to college.
people.
Or like a corporate retreat where like you don't want to be at the corporate retreat. Everybody does the trust fall and shit. That I'm getting big like corporate retreat vibes from this.
I'm getting like they want it. They desperately want what they're doing to be like academic, but it's just not. Like they're not knowledgeable enough to talk about the kind of things that you would in academia. So like they're not going to go to academia because like the kind of people making fun of them on Twitter are academia.
It's a mix, but yes, there were several people when you checked the profile of the people who were making fun of him. It was like professor of philosophy at such and such a place. Grad students, a lot of grad students in there making fun of them, and just a lot of people I'm more or less familiar with on Twitter making fun of them. It runs the gamut. You don't need to be an academic to make fun of these people, but it helps. But you could also just be a troll and make fun of these people.
Can't do it, but they're not just people that are living with you, right? I would argue we evolved to be in fellowship, and I do think the ecclesia, the church, was a place that made that. I hope this is the right word, Jonathan. I think it made it sacred. There's something sacred about where two or three are.
Does he mean that humans evolved to be a fellowship, or that like their little? What is it? What's next to space? Is that the evolution of the fellowship?
I think yes.
Because I mean, humans are social creatures, so in that sense, he's correct. But I don't think what they're doing is like in any way necessary or would come about naturally again.
Oh, I sure hope not. I sure hope generations in the future don't have to put up with whatever the VR version of this bullshit is.
Right. And so I think that that's another important aspect of this corner of the internet.
And one of the things that it's been interestingly enough, it's also been moving out of the internet, which is something which is positive, and not interestingly too, not moving out in a singular way.
No.
Right? Because it could have been something like, some guru or whatever starts a thing and then he has his group. So that's not what's happening.
But that's David Fuller. He is a guru and he has his group, you idiot.
Yeah, that's literally what they're doing right now.
That's David Fuller.
You're kind of there. I can see that people the people are going back to church too, but not going back to different churches. People are going back into their churches and trying to and understanding the importance of ecclesia and the importance of fellowship, and then trying to create that at a local level too, because it can't completely exist only online.
No, and I agree. And I think one of the evidences of the reality of the rediscovery of fellowship and of Dialogos is exactly what you're saying. If it just stayed on the internet, I would suspect it's reality.
And that's where the practices come in as well.
Very much.
Sort of the circling or the authentic relating, and there is a sort of
The authentic relating. Good job, David Fuller. The authentic relating. It's the circling. The authentic relate. Get the fuck out of here. Come on, man. Authentic relating. I can't even imagine like a context in which I would describe what I am doing as authentic relating.
What if you were on the internet talking to gullible rubes trying to get their money?
Oh, authentic relating it is.
pointing to of different practice groups that are maybe kind of becoming interested in a lot of the ideas, but have got maybe the embodied practices of fellowship or connection.
Yes.
And
breath work.
You mentioned Paul van der Klee as well, who, when I sort of described some of the workshops or practices that I was familiar with, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's that small group in church." He was kind of basically saying, "Yeah, we've already got that. We don't need that. We've already got that."
And Paul's setting up of the estuary, like Jonathan said, I think that's really important. I mean,
What is the estuary?
Did he just describe himself as like an off-brand church?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to make sure.
Yes. Yeah, big cult vibes.
I think that was a very apt description.
What do we call that? We call that accidental self-awareness.
Yeah, self-werewolves.
Yes, actually, David Fuller, the last like group call that we watched of his was fairly troubling because there were certainly some kind of, maybe not necessarily all the way into like cult territory, but like high demand and high control group vibes from it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not all the way into cult territory, but yeah, it was pretty bad. Cultish, yeah. And I don't know that he knows that he just had like a fucking absolute epiphany about himself and what he's doing, but that's what just happened.
An estuary is where saltwater and freshwater mix, and so the estuary isn't church, but it's a place that's supposed to be where people within the church and people without the church can meet in good faith dialogue.
You mean everywhere that isn't the church? Because you meet people every day. You probably run into people every day that if you're out and about, you talk to 20 people. Some of them go to church, some of them don't. And that's just fucking everywhere that isn't the church. I call it the bus, the train.
You can't have good faith dialogue at Safeway. It's not conducive. There's too much bread around you.
Just too much advertising around there for any of the stuff happening there to be good faith. What you have to do is scare everybody out of the coffee shop.
And really, we're not going to we're not here, we're going to convert you, right? There's no secret agenda. And also, there's an expectation people coming in from the world. We're not in here to sort of, debunk your Christianity. It's it's like, no, can we enter into genuine dialogos, and can we facilitate the formation of fellowship? And then how will that transform us? And then how can, people might go into the church, they might not. People might leave the church. That's also happened with it.
Like now they're just talking about being a group, and it's like, a group for what?
This is like
what do you guys like stand for?
They don't interrupt each other. They are, as he said, they don't question anything that anyone else in the group says.
It's because they don't say anything.
And to the extent that they do, somebody's just there to tell them that they're smart and they appreciate the conversation. I don't know. These people, I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have any friends.
And now they're just on about how wonderful it is that they can be a group.
It's like, there's groups everywhere.
Isn't it wonderful that we can be more than one person?
And that some of us can do this church activity and some of us don't. Let's describe it like an estuary. Get the fuck out of here.
People go back to where they go back home.
The thing is, though, if they ran into anybody salty, they'd be hella upset about it, right? So it's not even like an estuary.
Yeah, it's what do you call it when freshwater meets freshwater? It's just a river.
Right.
It's just the same river. They're just all floating down the same river.
They're going to transfer back and transfer their home life. And that's the important thing for estuary, as far as I understand.
So these are people meeting online or meeting in person?
I think both.
I think
both. Yeah.
Right.
But they do try to have in-person meetings as well,
Yes.
that's my understanding.
Yeah. And I wanted to raise a criticism that came up because I completely agree with you about there is a form as well. It's not just the content, it is the form and it's the way that these conversations are had. But I've spent a bit of time kind of dialing into what Peter Lindbergh and I have dubbed the critique sphere, which is sort of a group of people who've kind of emerged, and I think often have very valid criticisms.
Sure.
Oh, shit. Is he going to bring us up?
Is he talking about us?
Oh, no, he hates me. Like, he legitimately, for a while, was tattling on me to a couple people in the critique space for saying like things that are too mean about him. I'm not fucking kidding. This guy's skin is so thin. I was told these things in confidence. So I can't tell you who he's tattling on me to. And no, it's not either of the Gurus pod guys. I can say it's not either of those guys because that's who everybody immediately probably thinks it is. It's not them.
Of some of the figures in this space and some of the kind of focus on, and one of the criticisms they make is what they call civility porn. That a lot of the time, like this focus on kind of manners or the way that we interact actually can mask divisions and sometimes kind of difficult conversations are not had or, that's one of the criticisms I think is worth raising.
I think no conversations are had. It's not that difficult conversations are had. Easy conversations aren't even had. It's just you guys like jerking each other off mentally.
Right. It's like, yeah, the problem is kind of civility porn, but your analysis is right.
They never get to the climax because intellectual edging.
But your analysis is more right than whatever like laundered version of the criticism, because he's giving them like a very laundered, very watered down version of the kinds of criticism that people have. And the idea of civility porn, I had Aaron from Embrace the Void on, and we talked a little bit about it, and he kind of it was of your position that it's that nothing gets really said if everybody's so focused on civility that, you know, then nobody hashes anything out because everybody's like afraid to disagree with everybody else because it would be seen as rude.
Afraid to just make any point. Like no one's brought anything of substance up at all in any of these conversations that we've watched.
Of the sense makers especially, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cart before the horse. I think if you want deep differences to be deeply discussed in a way that might be transformative, there has to be trust. Yeah. And they're not getting, so they're putting the cart before the horse in the criticism.
But that's the other thing that a lot of these people do is they mix up the interpersonal and the public. Public discourse about important matters. Who the fuck has the time to build like this massive amount of trust with everybody that they're going to have public discourse with about the issues of the day? Like, it's not that it's the worst idea in the world. It's who has the fucking time.
I guess he's saying you can't argue with someone unless you've made out with them.
Lisa in chat just called this guy the milquetoast televangelist. So we've had a couple people on. I've been doing a little better job of trying to reach out to people, especially for this show. And there was places where I disagreed with Chris Kavanaugh. There was places where I disagreed with Aaron Rabinowitz of Embrace the Void. And we were actually able to have good conversations about the things we disagreed about. And we didn't go to like some corporate retreat and do trust falls and shit together before that. It's just that we weren't going to be hell mean to each other. Right.
Yeah. And like you and I have had disagreements, even like on the show, and we've talked about it. And in general, I'll come over to your side because it's usually about something I haven't thought about very much.
Or because it's my show. But you can do that. But you and I have known each other for a very long time. But you could do this with a stranger. You could have a difficult conversation about something with someone you met at a bar. And as long as you're not ready to punch them in the nose, you could even get a little bit heated in the discussion and learn something still.
Yeah, like there's a difference. There is a real difference between being civil and just doing civility porn.
Right. Being civil is trying to wait till someone finishes when you can. It's not waiting till someone finishes at the expense of anything happening in the discussion, right? Because if somebody's going to talk to you for 20 minutes straight, you got to interrupt them.
Especially if they're not saying anything.
You got to interrupt them. You don't have to be rude about it. You go, hey, hold on, let me stop you there because I'd like to ask a question about something you just said. Like, but this guy's like, oh, that's putting the cart before the horse to talk about civility porn. And it's like, no, I don't even know what you mean by that, but you're wrong. Like, you know what this sense making shit has shown to me is that I don't even have to know what someone means to know that they're wrong.
Well, like if it were actually true that, you know, building up layers and layers of trust before you finally get to talking about something of substance, if that were actually true that that's the way it should be done, then they would have gotten to something of substance by now.
Right, because these people were talking for the first what felt like 7 years, but it was only like 7 minutes, about how they had built up these layers of trust.
They're like 17 minutes in and they've not said anything.
And they've made it very clear that at least the two of them that appear to be on their second date have built up like a lot of trust.
Yep. This is the 4th segment in their video. What were the other segments?
And this is going to be my favorite part too, because they're gonna like talk ad nauseum about why basically we shouldn't criticize them, right? This is that part of it. It's this one. It's this part of the thing.
The focus on ridicule.
It's going to be this part. I guarantee that's what we're coming up against here. I don't think that like if Fuller brought up a criticism that was like, hey, there's people out there who think that a lot of this is just people not saying anything, then I'd have been like, that's us. But I know he's talking about Aaron Rabinowitz there, because Aaron Rabinowitz from Embrace the Void talks a lot about civility porn and how it gets in the way of having a real conversation with somebody.
Yeah, he should address that they're not actually saying anything of substance.
Debate in our society. And if that's the presupposition, that's a ridiculous presupposition. We are inundated and everything has become adversarial. I am not saying we stop that. I think there are, but what I'm saying is, no, there are different needs being met in different ways, and we delegate it. If we're going to do, right, there's proper arenas for example, in science, I got to debate. That's part of the job. That's how you do it. That's how it works, right? But if I take that courtroom model into, like, try and take it into your relationship with your significant other, it's going to destroy it. And yeah, exactly. and if you get into that protest polka, like Susan Johnson talks about, and this is a therapeutic point, you actually can't get to the differences because people get caught up in the intensity of the conflict and mistake that for the issue that is potentially resolvable. And what you have to do is you have to break out of that. You have to return people to a deep kind of...
But this is bullshit. I've had drag out arguments with people that I love, and we eventually got to the root of the matter because we were like mad. And finally somebody says, no, it's this. And they were never willing to say that shit before. And then the argument fucking stops for a moment because they can't believe they just said it. You can't believe they just said it. And now it's like right out there where everybody can fucking see the turd. Now we know what the turd looks like, and we can fucking clean up the turd.
Yeah. And to the extent that like he would be right in the sense of like an intellectual conversation about some specific topic about like, you know, should we pursue this as policy? Like, sure, you might get to the point where the exchanges become too heated and you're not actually talking about policy. But like, that doesn't mean that the other extreme is right and you just never talk about the policy because you're just all talking about how wonderful it is that you can sit down and maybe talk about the policy someday.
Right. It's like, it's like a good thing, you know, that's been in the news or whatever. The monarchy is all pomp and circumstance in the UK, and then their parliament is a fucking disaster, right? People are yelling and cheering, but the monarchy doesn't get shit done, and the parliament sets policy. Because the monarchy is just like, oh, I'm going to give a speech with a giant fucking piece of gold in my hand, and it's all very civil, but nothing gets done. Except maybe some sexual harassment and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, but you know.
And covering that up.
And mistreatment of the women who date the men if the people in the organization think they're commoners. Or if they're, you know, a little black.
Potential for trust. And then you say, now let's talk about our differences and avoid the protest polka, right? And let's try and can we both, let's say, can we bring up the differences, and then is it possible for there to be mutual movement? I think some people who criticize me just also forget the fact that I'm Canadian, and right, and so that's...
No, we don't, no, listen, the Canadians are a lovely people, but they need to stop sending us their intellectuals and their comedians, all right?
But for me, that would be my deepest reply. They're getting the cart before the horse, and they're presuming that there's a lack of adversarial debate in our culture, and I think that's not.
And I think that, and it's funny because if you pay attention to the conversations, you'll realize that some of the differences between us are huge.
They're deep.
They're big, and they're constant.
Like, how long do we have to wait before that happens?
Yeah, could you bring up like one example?
He's like, I believe in literal demons, and he only believes in them figuratively. Like, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, when is that ever going to happen?
Yeah, and like maybe have a conversation about that. Instead of having a conversation about, wouldn't that be great if we could have that conversation and maybe it'll happen one day?
You know who I want to stick like right in the middle of this, right in the middle where David Fuller is sitting, is the fucking ghost of George Carlin. Because he's not even alive anymore to suffer any like material consequences for the shit he might talk to these people. Or like even the ghost of drunk Chris Hitchens, whatever that would be like. Just stick him right between these two people.
Yep.
If you follow them to what that means in terms of what types of solutions you'll apply, and so I think that, and we are aware of them. We're not pretending, but we're saying there's no point. We actually do. It's like a circle. A circle is a good way to think about it. So we'll go into that subject a little, like we'll push it, we'll feel the tension, then we'll move on to something else.
What do you do in this circle?
We'll come back.
Oh no, HK, we'll just let it, just leave that dangling there.
It's like, this is not going to break a relationship.
Sorry, leave that there at attention.
Okay, this isn't over yet. We have to come back and we're going to discuss it. And so I think that a lot of what I'm seeing in this like critique sphere is like what they would like is they would like to be able to put someone on trial and then just kind of put out all the accusations and what do you say to that, sir? What do you say to this? I mean, that's fine, whatever. That can exist, but I think that that's definitely not a model for a society, and it's not a model for.
No, that's literally a model. That's literally a model for justice in our society, sir.
That's critique.
And also, that's literally how the court system works.
Yeah, true.
In Canada, the same as the United States.
Yeah, but that's what criticism is. Like, does he mean like he just wishes that he could never answer criticism? Because like that's fine, you can do that too,
right? But just cop to it.
I mean, you don't even have to, but we're going to keep criticizing you then.
Well, to be fair, if he was like, I don't like criticism, we'd be like, then we'd...
Showing how...
There's no winning with us, but we're not the whole critique sphere.
About it that way. We're saying one of the things we have is a breakdown in the existence of these intermediary groups. Like we don't have communities anymore. Our families are broken. We don't have churches. We don't have intermediary organizations. We have the state, and then we have the...
Oh, big divorcee energy from this guy now. Not to say
what is he talking about?
Not to say everybody that got divorced is bad, but I'm just getting big divorced guy whose like family maybe doesn't hang out with him energy on the guy on the left now.
Yeah, probably. Because what the fuck is he talking about?
And also that's like just a right wing dog whistle about like poor people and black people and their families and shit too. Like, I don't think he means it that way, but that's the reason he doesn't mean it that way, because if he did, he would be making some kind of point, even if it was racist. And so I don't think he means it that way, because that would it goes against his nature to make a point, even a racist point.
But he just said there's nothing in between the state and the individual. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Does he not believe in cities?
Well, the city is the state. He doesn't mean like the state like California. He means like the state, like the government.
The city might be like, what about like an unincorporated city?
No.
I mean, he said there's no community. A city is a community.
Yeah, a city is he's basically, there's no neighborhood, right? There's no neighborhood anymore.
Okay. I mean, I live in a neighborhood.
I do too.
Talk to my neighbors.
And everything else is being broken down in between. If we want to rebuild something...
I think I have a theory. None of his neighbors want to talk to him. So he does not believe in neighborhoods anymore.
I think this is his house, and they're like, why did you build a pretentious coffee shop in your living room? and then they never come over again. That's this is so crazy. And they're like way off topic from like the fact that people are critiquing them for not saying anything. And they're responding basically to the critique that they don't ever say anything by just not saying anything. It's bulletproof.
Like so much of like their point, I guess, if they have one, just boils down to like, why is everyone allowed to criticize me?
What it means, because it's the same. If you live in a group and you would take on that critical approach, someone that lives in the same house as you, how long do you think you're going to be living with them?
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you have to ignore it, but you have to come at it like this, like the cycling of the cycling of trust and of questioning.
How does he think people live together?
In a relationship,
People are critical of one another, but they're not like, they like go, hey, when you do this, it annoys me, or when you do this, it makes it harder for me to get ready for work, or when, you know what I'm saying? Like people do it all the time. Hey, can you do me a favor and X? People do it all the time.
Has he never had roommates?
God, imagine being this guy's roommate. Oh, bad enough when he's sober. Imagine this guy like after like 6 scotches, especially if he like bought really nice scotch. And so he's like swirling it around in the glass while he's like waxing about fucking nothing. But he's like 6 glasses of scotch in, just like with the ice clinking in the glass, just like fucking just talking about how great it is that you could drink scotch with him, but he hasn't even offered you any.
And then you get up to leave and he's like, oh wait, I got one more thing.
with the one person, it's the same thing. You can't always be telling the person their faults, and those faults could be completely true. Like everything I say about my wife, if I criticize her, could be absolutely true. But if that's all I do, because well, you haven't fixed that yet, right? Because I see you haven't fixed it, so let's keep talking about it until you fix it. It's like that's not a reality.
It's also a pretentious standing point for the critic.
Okay, now I kind of understand what he means here. He means that the people who criticize him, he only ever sees them criticize him. So he assumes that they just criticize everyone all the time. Because that's the only behavior he's ever seen from them.
Right. He would assume that about us. But like, that's not the case. Like, we obviously don't spend that much time criticizing each other. Otherwise we'd just be arguing all the time on the show. He assumes that because people think he's full of shit, that they just think everyone's full of shit about everything. But it turns out it hasn't occurred to him that maybe he's just full of shit.
Yeah. There's a reason we don't criticize everyone on this show. Because not everyone is full of shit.
Right. Like, not everyone goes around lying and like having these self-aggrandizing, like, it's basically, we go after people who are like, say false things in a self-aggrandizing way. That's like the target of this show, or at least that's what I think the target of the show is. And so like my neighbor across the way doesn't get a feature on the show because I've never even met them, but I assume they don't behave this way because most people don't behave this way.
Right. It's I'm out here and I'm going to do this. And
what?
I'm going to find the criticisms. But where are you standing? Are you going to come in and actually, one of two things will happen. Then you'll allow me to do that to you, and then we'll get to the point of non-negotiable faults that we won't, right? And that's what happens when relationships break down. Or we'll get into, I'm going to actually open up a little towards you, and then you're going to move towards, I would argue, if you're going to actually participate, as opposed to taking a pretentious epistemic stance, then you're going to either move into acrimonious division, or you're going to have to move into something where,
But sometimes
why doesn't he try to participate with the people criticizing him, though?
From a group, because
they're
like,
doing
why
it,
doesn't that road go both ways?
They're doing it in bad faith.
You know, either of us would go on that show if we were invited, I think.
David Fuller would have to communicate with me through some kind of intermediary because he's terrified of me. But yes.
And can we say the same of them? I mean, like, he's more popular on the internet than us.
Absolutely.
But like a show just like ours that were equally as popular as his, do you think he would go on that show?
Just like ours, no, but he did talk to Chris Kavanaugh of Decoding the Gurus, and he did have Aaron from Embrace the Void on. And those are in our realm. But we're different. Like, honestly, we're different than them. We're a lot different because we're just, I mean, first of all, we were first. Like, we were first here, and we're not like academics. We're not like philosophers or whatever. And so it's just a different thing. But I don't think that I would kind of like to maybe, I don't know if I want to talk to either of the two people on the end, but I'd like to talk to David Fuller. I definitely don't want to talk.
I think I'd rather talk to the two people on the end because they seem to be the most full of shit. But I guess that's just because they've been talking the most.
Oh, you're nailed it. Oh man.
Their behavior, the things they're saying, are completely corrosive to the existence of something. Yeah. So I'm not saying that shouldn't exist, but we should be careful to think that this is just the manner that you deal with problems or questions. That we're not that in our relationships we're not addressing these issues. We're doing it progressively through these cycles of discussion. So that's what I think.
So here's what I totally agree with that, and what I would say is we have enough forces, both algorithmic and social, pushing into prominence acrimonious division, right? That it doesn't need to be emphasized. It can be needed or necessary. I think we've got an imbalance. So if they think it's civility porn, I think it's trying to address a significant imbalance in the society.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously something I've thought a lot about, having tracked a lot of these public conversations, one of which was the idea of the kind of intellectual dark web. Can we have sort of conversations that go beyond ideology, that are kind of going somewhere new?
But that's not what the go ahead.
I think his point was, oh yeah, well, you guys disagree a lot, so we've just made it a point to just never talk about anything we're going to disagree on.
Maybe.
Was that his point?
I don't know, but his description of the intellectual dark web there was like, we're going to have conversations free of ideology. Like, the intellectual dark web was an ideology of its own, right? It was this.
Yeah, and it was also full of ideology.
Yeah, it was like this sort of faux centrist, anti-social justice, anti-leftist, like pro sort of, I don't know what they were in favor of. Calipers, IQ tests. It was this. It wasn't like it wasn't like a blank slate kind of place where different people from the far left to the middle to the far right were having these conversations. It was like very much clustered in the center right with a bunch of people who thought that they were just so fucking smart. And at least Dave Rubin was grossly overestimated in how smart he is by all those people. The rest of them I could see where you could be fooled, but come on.
Wholeheartedly agree there.
And it's very difficult when there's a sort of level of prominence, partly, as you say, because of the tools, because of the algorithms, which on both sides sort of, they boost conflict, they boost tribalism, they boost criticism, but they also identify us often with our worst takes, or we become we sort of calcify around our worst opinions in a way a lot of the time, because we sort of are forced to defend them. And I also think there was
But no, you being forced
can you defend them?
Yeah, you being forced to defend your worst opinions is probably how you change your mind about your bad opinions.
Yeah, like if you can't defend it, maybe change it.
Right, maybe not right away, but be like, okay, I guess I should probably think about that a little bit. Like,
yeah, and if it's been like 2 years and you're like, you know what, I honestly can't come up with a good reason that I believe this, I think you've got your answer.
Right. And just the way that they like are talking about criticism is so weird, because if they're not really applying this same principle of charity that they want to apply to each other, to the people that are criticizing them in this. And they're not even naming anybody either. People get mad at me for naming the names, right? When I'm like, this person's full of shit, I use their name. And like, so you know who I'm talking about. And you can draw your own conclusion about it. They're talking about criticism in the most fucking abstract possible way that you can talk about criticism, and then acting like it's bad. But I don't even know.
Yeah,
I mean, are they talking about us? Are they talking about Aaron from Embrace the Void? Are they talking about the guys from Conspirituality? Are they talking about the Majority Report? Are they talking about the fucking Gurus Pod guys? They're talking about Ina from Nice Convert. Who the fuck are they even talking about? Because there's a lot of people who.
Or are they talking about just getting dunked on Twitter?
Right? Are they just talking about getting ratioed by somebody with 37 followers who has a pretty good handle on what the fuck they're doing? Yeah. Like, the more I listen to the way these people talk about criticism, the more I'm willing to stand by sort of one of like the thing that we do that gets criticized the most. And the thing that we do is like name and shame people. And the reason I'm willing to defend it now is because of the first part where you name them. So you know who the fuck we're talking about. Who were they? At this point, I figure at the beginning he was bringing up something I've heard Aaron from Embrace the Void talk about, but it's gone so far afield from that. He didn't say Aaron's name. It's not like Aaron would have got pissed if he would have said, oh, Aaron from Embrace the Void was talking to me and he was saying this. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's just saying the nebulous they. It's always the nebulous they that are against the also nebulous us. You know, fill in groups here at your pleasure.
But there's no tribalism at play, of course.
As you mentioned, like the sense of safety that's needed to create for these conversations, I think was not created or was not.
But wait a minute, aren't these the same motherfuckers who were freaking out about a safe space a couple of years ago?
Yes, they are.
I mean, not the exact same motherfuckers, but they're in the same orbit, you know?
Yeah.
Expanded beyond the sort of a small number of people. And like what I think is quite beneficial about the conversation that we're part of is it's hopefully happened a little bit more underground, longer to be able to build up some of those relationships of trust, not in this kind of like New York Times article about all of these new public intellectuals, which then kind of creates this obvious kind of target. And quite right.
People were making fun of those people before they stood in front of the plant, David. People were making fun of Jordan Peterson before he stood in front of the plant, I promise.
Should have been
people were making fun of Jordan Peterson like immediately because what he was saying was just blatantly untrue.
And then how he was saying it was also, fun to make fun of. Let's not lie, right? Let's not pretend that some of it wasn't just like straight up making fun of his affect.
Yeah.
But if he would have been like a nice man who that was his affect, I don't think people would have gone after him.
But it also turns out it got worse as he got more and more addicted to benzos.
And more addicted to popularity too.
Yep.
Kind of safety of the conversation breakdown for various human reasons, magnified by the social media kind of platforms that we're using, which bring out the worst in us and augment lack of trust as well.
And I think a lot of it is because it happened explicitly on the political level, and the political level that's what that level is for. It does have a certain amount of debate, a certain amount of it's the level of conflict. That's where the political level. That's where we have wars. We have wars.
That's also where we get the attention as well. So it drags people there because there's such a temptation. Because that's where you get the responses on Twitter. That's where you get the.
But wait a minute, David Fuller got famous by bringing on people who created conflict. Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein. Those people all create conflict.
Yep.
So I don't know what he's talking. Like he's part of the problem. He's like a midwife for some of these people who are creating this kind of conflict. Or like a mob wife. I don't know which. Take your pick.
It's a strange attractor of immense force.
The discussion we've been having, they have political corollaries, but they don't tend to be focused on politics. We don't tend to deal with the recent issue and everything. So we're trying to kind of talk about the meaning crisis more and about how we can kind of solve that. And then sometimes we'll say a little bit of politics, but it's not the central thing. And I think that's helped. I think that in the IDW, one of the things that happened, and you can see what it broke down, was it ended up being the political sphere. And
oh my God. Yeah, the IDW, it started becoming political. Get the fuck out of here. The whole thing was political from the beginning. It was like the rejection of social justice. It was like its defining feature. The thing that everyone agreed upon was that the SJWs had gone too far. It was like the manosphere, but with a PhD.
Yep. It was immediately political.
Specific political questions that this person is on the wrong side of, or on the right side of, and then I can't associate with them anymore, and so then we criticize each other across, and so. No,
it broke up because of, like, I guarantee you, it broke up because of the conspiracy theories.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Dave Rubin got kind of jettisoned off because it took them a while, but they all figured out the guy's an idiot, right? They all just figured out that he's an idiot. Even Brett and Eric had a conversation about how Dave Rubin's audience had captured him. And then like the rest of it all broke up. It broke up Sam Harris just left. Actually, he was the only one that broke off because of conspiracism now that I think about it. Did Joe Rogan break off because of conspiracism? Did Eric Weinstein, did Shermer break off? Did Barry Weiss break off?
Actually, yeah, but that's kind of what people call as like the event that killed the IDW. But you're right. I think they just more or less lost relevance.
Right, as a group. And some of the individuals, Brett's back on his way down, but during COVID, Brett had never been more popular.
Yeah. But that's where, like, his popularity growth is what Sam Harris had a problem with, because I don't know why they didn't have a problem before that, because some of Sam Harris's politics were pretty different and it seemed just as egregious to me. But I don't know. I guess Sam Harris is not okay with like actively spreading misinformation, just passively.
Yeah, I think. Well, and I think, I could see where if you're friendly with somebody, that being the place where you go, you know what, that's it. I'm sorry, that's it. I can see that being the place. If you're like willing to put up with like, if you're willing to put up with Charles Murray on your fucking show and then willing to go defend him, you've already demonstrated that if you have like a personal affinity for someone, that you're going to go pretty far out on a limb with them. So, I mean, if that was the place, that was the place. But the problem I kind of had with it too was that Sam wasn't willing to just come out straight out and say that this guy's doing demonstrable harm. Like what he's doing is bad. I can't believe that I didn't see the warning signs of this. That would have been like, and I need to examine who I'm spending my time with and who I'm platforming. But that'd be too much to ask.
For Sam to have a decent take on anything.
Yeah.
I think first, the attempt to shift the sacred into the political arena has been a significant mistake.
What does that even mean?
The sacred into the political arena? Is that what he said?
So is he for separation of church and state? I don't know.
And it can't incorporate a lot of the other stuff that I think is central to meaning making. And I do worry also, like I said, I've said to you before, I worry about the hermeneutics of suspicion being considered the default mode in which we approach reality, and the hermeneutics of suspicion prioritizes devastating criticism, right? So the devastating criticism that knocks the person down or reveals the secret flaw, and and it's like, okay, you do need to do that because there are people that should be knocked off their high horse. I'm not saying that, but
just not me.
Again, why not also present what the hermeneutics of suspicion always depends on, which is the hermeneutics of beauty, right? It's not the case.
We maybe pull apart because I think this is a great concept. We've talked about it on the channel, but maybe people watching this won't be familiar with it.
So this is an idea from Ricoeur, and the hermeneutics of suspicion is basically sort of given to the West by Marx, by Freud, by Nietzsche. It's the idea that there's underneath it, there's always a secret agenda, a hidden motive.
No, that's conspiracism.
And there's a lot, or the unconscious, or the class struggle, or the will to power.
Yeah.
But those aren't, no. That's not a secret agenda. The class struggle or people's will to power, those aren't secrets.
Those are public agendas.
Right. The will to power is like one of the oldest ideas in philosophy. Is that power will corrupt people. That's one of the oldest, it's axiomatic and everyone knows about it. This is the opposite. The will to power is not a secret.
Yep.
What the fuck? Come on, man.
Or some systemic oppression, right?
This is what you're doing.
Maybe it was revelatory to him.
These things that he's talking about are all in the public discourse. None of it's a secret.
The manifest and the latent, Weber made a distinction too. Bureaucracies are set up to do this. This is their manifest function, but they have this latent function. So you can see many thinkers coming to this. And the hermeneutics of suspicion is based on this idea that appearances are distracting, they're distorting, there's misleading, what you want to do is you want to break through. Now the problem, and this is a point that Merleau-Ponty hammers.
I believe the saying goes, appearances are deceiving.
Looks can be deceiving is actually the saying.
Oh, okay.
So looks can be deceiving. That person looks nice and then they punch you in the face. Well, I guess they're not very nice, at least not to you.
But yeah, that's not something that's uncommon knowledge. We have a saying for it.
Right.
So yeah.
These are what a weird thing to the obvious being presented as novel is another through line with these people.
Yep.
Right, the phenomenology of perception, and the visible and the invisible, and you can only realize something's an illusion in comparison to something else that you take to be real.
Wait, what?
So what that means is you have to say no.
I mean, you have to have reality to know what isn't reality, I guess. But that's like saying you have to have water to know what isn't water.
Yes, you have to know what something is to know what it isn't. That is correct.
What the fuck? The what is he saying? The hermetics of suspicion. He's probably doing a great disservice to a decent way to sense make. You should be. What is it? Trust but verify. That's slightly suspicious, right? The idea of trusting but verifying.
Yeah.
In order to say that turned out to be illusion, I know that because look, I can't touch it, right? And the touching is real, right? And so, what's going on when you say it's real? I'm not trying to do the.
What do you think David Fuller's writing right now?
What you're saying is no. There are times when the appearances aren't distracting or distorting or deceptive. They're actually disclosing of reality. And I take that to be at least the ancient,
aha moment.
an aha moment, and I take that when appearances do that for.
You had an aha moment because you also realized that if you observe something, it could be descriptive of the reality? That's not an aha moment. That's called looking at something. Like, what the fuck?
I think his aha moment was realizing that just because he saw something, it doesn't necessarily mean that what he thinks he saw is what he saw.
Or maybe it's a dig at the
this
guy
guy
who
believes in demons.
No, the other guy believes in demons. Maybe it was a dig at the demon guy.
Oh, okay.
Good-natured jabbing.
That's what the ancient, at least.
So maybe the other guy hasn't realized that yet.
The hermeneutics of beauty actually is primary, and the hermeneutics of suspicion is completely parasitic on it. And what I'm critiquing is the imbalance. Right? I'm saying, no. We should also be doing a lot to exemplify.
But wait a minute. Okay, so you can be like, that's beautiful, but I don't think you painted that. Right? If your friend never painted a goddamn thing in the world and then they show you the Mona Lisa, you're like, that is a beautiful painting. You didn't make that. So, in fact, I know what that is.
Put in some text on Dolly Mini, okay?
I know what that is. That's the fucking Mona Lisa. Like, why do you wait? That's the original. Are you? I gotta call somebody. I think this is illegal.
Also, why are you holding that gun and wearing that ski mask?
In that manner, I want to challenge the prioritization, the implicit and almost unchallenged, uncriticized assumption that the hermeneutics of suspicion is the way in which we should move through the world.
And the idea that the hermeneutics of beauty are primary, this is not just a statement that John is making. This is actually the manner in which you engage with your daily life every day,
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
When you walk out on the street and you don't think it's going to break apart, when you pick up a glass and it's holding the liquid in it, you are
No. That's not the hermeneutics of beauty. It's not beautiful that your glass doesn't break when you fucking pick it up. That means somebody figured out how to make a glass. I would hate to live in a world where I was suspicious of every glass in my fucking cabinet. Like, how fucked up would that be?
Like, it's you don't do that for everyday objects because you have no reason to believe that everyday objects are an illusion. Until one day they fucking are, and then you're like, okay, I guess my glass can be an illusion now.
Well, maybe somebody tricked you or whatever, but then maybe because they tricked you, you learn something cool, right? Like, if it's not bad, right? If you're like, oh shit, there's not even a glass there. It's a hologram. Holy shit. You're like, how'd you do that? Where's the hologram? Then somebody's like, that's my hologram. Let me show you how this works. And then you learn something. But then you can't, just because that happened, you're not going to go around assuming like, the waiter, like the fucking food server brings you a cocktail, you're like, sir, that might be a hologram.
I demand you prove that is real.
Oh my God.
Hermeneutics of beauty.
Trust.
It's just trust. Yeah. It's just the idea that what is being disclosed to me, the appearance of it, is revealing what is true about it. And this is something which is actually the fuel for your life. Exactly. You couldn't function without it, and it is the fuel for everything that's good and that makes you feel alive. So although it is true that sometimes there are appearances can hide what is behind it, as John said, we have to remind people that the primary mode is this hermeneutics of beauty. And if you engage with it that way, and if you also, because one of the problems with the hermeneutics of suspicion is that if you engage others with that hermeneutics, the position in which you're in is a position from which you won't receive anything from the person in front of you, because I already figured you out.
This is as good a place as any to stop this. So, and we're going to watch a little more of this during the post game, but we actually are going to go to part 2. We watched some of part 2 like a month ago, like during the post game. So we're going to get about halfway through to part 2 in the post game here and see if they're even saying anything. But I got to tell you, these two things that they're talking about, first of all, these can't possibly be the only two ways to look at the world, is just beauty and suspicion. But let's say that these are the two big ways to do it. I'm going to present an idea to you is that these two things would be in a push-pull at all times in everyone's mind, because they would have to be. I couldn't see it working any other way.
Yeah.
But you can't break everything down to beauty and suspicion. That's stupid.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to.
No, you're leaving out like fun things like surprises. Because you like, if you were like a surprise, you would be like, actually, I'm glad I wasn't hyper suspicious because, well, it depends. Was it a good surprise? Like a surprise party? Ooh, I bet nobody ever throws
the glass wasn't actually there.
But
it's a magic trick.
But that's a surprise, but that's good.
Yeah.
And when you
how'd you do that?
And like a lot of skeptics love going to magic shows. We know there's no magic. We just think it's cool. Like, I bet you go to a magic show and it's going to be like skeptics are going to be like overrepresented in the audience. Because it's fucking cool because it's somebody's tricking you and they're doing it on purpose and they're telling you beforehand that they're going to trick you and it's still awesome.
Yeah. And the magicians are skeptics too. So
generally, I mean, yeah, usually. And so like everybody's in on the thing and the most suspicious people in the world are there to view the beauty of a magic show. So it just blows this whole fucking paradigm away. Like this guy's shit, it's just blows it all away because everybody there knows it's not real. And it's just, if it's a good magic show, it's fun as fuck. There's comedy, there's music, there might be dancing, there's performance art, like, and it just blows away this guy's whole paradigm. Because the beauty is in like the suspension of the suspicion, even though you know it's fake.
Yeah, and maybe there's a sense of danger, and the sense of danger is what you like. Or maybe you're just there because it's your friend's magic show and he expects your friends to show up. I don't know. Who fucking knows? But like that's such a dumb way to look at things, and I'm just like really disappointed that these people are like considered to be like intellectuals. I don't think I should be considered an intellectual. I actually kind of reject the idea of like measurable intellect anyway. But if we need to do better as a society, if we're going to prop up people as being hella smart, we need to do a little bit better. And I suggest we start with propping up the magicians. I agree.
Fuck.
Yep.
All right, HK, you want to read the show out?
Yes, we do the show every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. If you want to check out our other shows, check out echoplexmedia.com. And if you want to support us, it's patreon.com/echoplex. And if you are here live on Twitch, we'll see you on the other side of this song for Red Light. This is Boomers by Periscope.
You were calling
Hey, this is the Councilman, inviting you to tune in for Down Ballot, live every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on Echoplex Media, or on your favorite podcatcher. Get the dip on local derp from the folks who know it best, us. And don't forget to stay tuned for Local Love. Down Ballot, because all derp is local.